because it's going to take a minute.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning and welcome to the debate show. It is November the 8th. I am your host, BA. We got with us Jack Hirsch and James Martin. I hope you guys are having a fine morning. We're going to get right into our debates. Speaking of which, this is coming off a week of trades. Trade deadline was this week. So this question is pertaining to the trade deadline, and it's also pertaining to Jack Hirsch's New York Jets. So did the Jets do the correct thing in trading Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams? I'm going to give that one to you, Jack, because you're more familiar with that team, and your opinion, counts for that such.
Trading them in itself wouldn't have been the right thing, but with what they got back, absolutely. It's called getting ahead of the curve. People don't have imagination. They just look at things in its present sense. Now, this season, the Jets weren't going anywhere with Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. Let's take both players one at a time. Sauce Gardner, in his rookie year, he was sensational. I wouldn't have traded him after 1 year. He was a cornerstone player. He was a great player. He was on track to be one of the all-time great Jets. But in his second year, he was merely good. He didn't have a great year in his second year. This third year, he was having a pretty good year on balance. Okay? But what the Colts had to offer in return, they were offering 2 number 1 draft choices, a receiver, Adonai Mitchell, who was a number 2 draft choice, who was drafted a year ago. So essentially, the Jets got 2 number 1s and a number 2. They got a secondary receiver to now complement Garrett Wilson. They got all this great draft capital, and they got flexibility under the cap because they were paying Sauce Gardner $40 million a year, which was top dollar for a cornerback. He's just a cornerback, $40 a year. Unless you're getting Deion Sanders and Darrelle Revis, you don't pay $40 million a year. Excuse me, 40. Did I say thousand?
You said $40 at first. So I'm thinking, like, what year is this? 1918?
Yeah. Excuse me. I'm discombobulated. $40 million. Yeah, I can't believe they're paying him $40 million a year. That's why I couldn't say the words. I was saying $40, 40,000, $40 million a year. I mean, that's insane money. You better. And Sauce Gardner, at the time they traded him, now is considered about the 5th best cornerback in the NFL, approximately by most standards. I'm not going to start going over debating who the 4 are ahead of him. I'm talking about consensus. So look what they got. They got 2 number 1 draft picks. They got a starting wide receiver, Mitchell, a number 2 receiver to complement Garrett Wilson. And they got flexibility under the cap so they can make all these moves. And Sauce Gardner wasn't going to help them this year. No one was going to help the 1-7 Jets this year. This year's lost, basically. We're rebuilding for next year. Quentin Williams, outstanding talent. Last I looked, he didn't have a sack this season. He was really good against the run. He's a heck of a player. Don't get me wrong, a heck of a player. But guess what? His contract was underpaying him a little bit. He had 2 years left on it. There was going to be big trouble on the horizon beginning next year. He was already posting things. He was gently complaining, and they got rid of him basically before it became a major issue. And they got a number 1 draft pick from the Cowboys and a number 2, a number 1 and a number 2. And I mean, when you look at the value that the Jets got back, they have 2 number 1s this year, 3 number 1s next year. They have, a couple of number 2s. I mean, the Jets are basically stacked for any move that they're going to make. And the Jets really killed it this draft. It's great. There's a lot to look forward to. If the Jets were in contention, maybe you question the deal. But they're not in contention. The year's lost. They lost with Gardner and Williams, and they can lose without them. That's the worst thing that'll happen.
Of course, I'm going to question the deal. I hear you saying maybe you question if they're in contention, but even if they're not in contention, you're going to question this deal. Why? Because they have a history of just blowing their first round draft picks. I mean, has they increased their odds of possibly getting somebody of any like substance or quality? Yes, maybe, because they have 2 first round draft picks next year in the second, 2 seconds, and they got 3 first rounds in 2027. But what happened with let's just say you need a quarterback? I think in this particular instance, they probably need a quarterback. Justin Fields is likely not the answer there. So you're going to need a quarterback. Mendoza, if you get the first pick overall, is Mendoza out of Indiana a good quarterback? I think he is. I think is he worthy of a top first round overall pick? Potentially. I mean, but you also thought that with Sam Darnold when you picked it 3rd overall. 2nd overall, you thought Zach Wilson was the answer. Turns out neither one of these guys were the answer. And I think the issue is those quarterbacks are going on to Zach Wilson's the 2nd stringer. Sam Darnold's an excellent player, but I think the problem is not the player that you're drafting, it's the team and the organization, and the issues are there. So what are you going to do with your management team? What are you going to do with the organization to try to fix this situation? Because ultimately you're going to bring some good players in and still not win. Because the track record of the Jets organization has shown that they have not won. I mean, since 2010, right? Or when Rex Ryan was there. That was about the last time they had some semblance of greatness there. And after that, that's a long time of not having any really relative success. And so you got all this money and all this capital, but what are you going to do with it? I would have you just paid Sauce Gardner a heap of money, $40 million. You mentioned $40 million. That's what it costs to have somebody in the top 5 at your position. And you know how hard it is to get that kind of guy at that position? It's very hard to find someone who's dominant. And I think Sauce Gardner is in the same ilk as a Patrick Surtain, as a Ward, what's the guy that played for Cleveland? I forgot his first name. Not Javarius Ward, but the other Ward.
Denzel Ward.
Yeah.
Denzel Ward's a great corner. I put Sauce Gardner in that ilk, that same, those are his peers. So that's his level of play. And you send them away because you're 1 and 8?
Well, 1 and 7. But James, I think the problem is you live in the moment. The way things are at this exact moment, you don't have the vision. And the Carolina,
the Jets organization don't have the vision. They have shown. I'm giving you evidence. I'm giving you period a long history. They don't have the evidence. I mean, they don't have the vision. I got vision. I think Stevie Wonder has vision for what they should be doing. I just think they don't have enough. They don't have enough there. I just think
A couple of years ago, the Carolina Panthers were living in the moment. The LA Rams offered them 2 first-round draft picks for Brian Burns, their great defensive end. Oh, no, they're not going to make the deal. Burns is too valuable. 1 year later, they trade him to the Giants for low draft choice. Think of what they could have gotten had they made the deal at that moment. Also, some players are built to last on a high level. Sauce Gardner's a small guy. If you looked at him the last time, he's a thin guy. He's not a great tackler. Is he really going to be built to last? And then Quentin
Deion Sanders wasn't a great tackler. Deion Sanders wasn't a great tackler. But what did he do for his career? I mean, Sauce Gardner, to me, I get you. He's not the biggest guy, and I thought the same when he came in. But he's shown to me that this is what an organization and coaching is supposed to do. You put a guy like that in position to succeed. Like I mentioned to you, Nate Wiggins, I thought he was too small to be in the league. And you said, no, you got to give him a shot. Look at Sauce. I mean, I remember you and I talked about this. And Nate is showing that he is a excellent player. But to me, you can't have a guy like that tackling all day, every day. Virtually, you want to utilize his skill set. He's a shutdown defensive. He's a shutdown defensive cornerback. And with that said, you're going to take some L's because he's not going to be the best tackler probably because going up against a guy like the running back that Derrick Henry. Like if you was a matchup against him in practice, I'm pretty sure he'd get run over. But that's not his job. You need to have linebackers and defensive linemen that should be afford him time, or to not have to run up on guys like that. Your defense should be solidified in the front 7, so where the guy's not getting into the secondary, where a guy like Nate has to be tackling all the time. To me, that's on coaching, and all that matters. And Quentin Williams, you virtually swap Mozzie Smith and a second and a first for Quentin Williams.
Smith was a number 1 draft choice who's underperformed. So
yes, exactly.
You know what it is? The Jets went to the clearance rack in the department store and they got him, something that was of high value. I'm sure Brian likes to do that, check out the clearance rack. Something that was once a very high priced item, you get it really cheap. You go there at the rack, which is a bargain. He was a throw-in, and that's a bargain. They actually got a guy who 2 years ago was a first-round draft choice just as a throw-in, and they took a flyer on him. Maybe he works out, maybe he doesn't, but if he does, and you would have had to pay Quentin Williams like Myles Garrett, like T.J. Watt to hold on to him. And were you ready to invest that type of money in Quentin Williams, a really good defensive end? But I don't quite think so.
And he's more than really good defensive end. I think he's borderline elite.
He doesn't have a sack this season.
I mean, wasn't he hurt or injured?
Elite after 8 games.
Yeah,
no,
he was injured.
He was injured.
Yeah. But he was on the
field.
Injured. He was on the field for some games.
To me, I think a lot of this is accumulated by your whole team. I'm not going to blame. I think you're giving up too soon on these players, and I think it's a mistake to have traded them. Now, mind you, I said they got a king's ransom for both, but what you do with it and what the history of the Jets, I'm not excited about what they're going to do.
That terribly. They picked Sauce Gardner in the 4th round, the same year Garrett Wilson, number 10. But yeah, they have. It's the picks they didn't make, the stupidity in not taking Brock Bowers. I said it beforehand, and I said it on this show. I was going to keep reminding people how dumb it was not to take him. And had Brock Bowers turned out to be a bust, I would have reminded people how off I was and what I said. They did a need pick. And these teams, two things stand out as dumb. When you're drafting a guy overall based on what he shows at the combine, as opposed to game film like Zach Wilson, good gosh, he could throw so wonderfully across his body. Well, how many times is he going to have to throw across his body during a game? 2-3 times? Come on, give me a break. So the combines and the need pick, as opposed to the better player. So they take a guard from Penn State, Fashanu, good player, don't get me wrong, but not when Brock Bowers is available.
So I agree with you to an extent, but foundational pieces are still key because right now, Fashanu is still one of the better offensive linemen in the league. And you know how hard it is to get offensive linemen to be actually good to elite? Very hard because there's only so many offensive linemen you can name. I get Brock Bowers is a once in a generational talent in regards
not
to
one of the best offensive linemen in the league. He hasn't proven it yet. Yeah, let's see what he does. But even if Fashanu turns out to be the next Brickashaw Ferguson, I still want Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, if he doesn't get hurt, is going to the Hall of Fame. Okay? And Fashanu might be a good player. So basically, I want a great tight end, a Hall of Fame tight end over a good offensive lineman. That's basically what it comes down to.
I suppose because you can. It's like I'll say this one thing, and I'll let Brian chime in. You still got to be able to throw to the tight end. You still got to be able to get the ball out to him. And I just think your foundational pieces that you just got rid of in Sauce Gardner and Quentin Williams is bringing you backwards. It's not a lateral move. It's not a forward. Definitely not a forward move. It's a backwards move. Obviously, you're saying that you're rebuilding, but again, with their history of what they've done, it's still questionable because even though you got a king's ransom for them, what are you going to do with them? And I think a lot of that has to do with coaching and management. So we'll see.
I've seen this before. This is the exact same thing the Lions did. Remember, they traded Stafford. And everybody's saying, they had the same opinion of Stafford as you do with Sauce Gardner. Oh, he's not that great of a quarterback, but they got a king's ransom for him too. He turned out to get the Super Bowl the following year when they traded him. So obviously he was worth something. And then they got, they made a series of trades. They got good draft picks. I think the only thing that and I understand where they're going with this. I do. They're doing the same, AG comes from that branch. So he's trying to do the same thing that Detroit did with the Jets. However, the difference being is the general manager. Brad Holmes is pretty good at drafting. Not the greatest person in free agency, but he is very good in drafting. He doesn't hit on everything. No GM does. But I got to see that. I got to have that confidence in the GM for the Jets. I'm not sure that he can draft like Holmes can draft, and that's going to be the issue. The picks are fine. You can get all the picks in the world. And then what are you going to do with the picks? So you want to go out there and get tight ends and wide receivers, but you got to build from the trenches out. Right now, you definitely got to build from the trenches out now that you got rid of Quentin Williams. So you got to add another defensive lineman in there that's going to be impactful. And you're going to have to get some more offensive linemen for whoever quarterback that you have back there. Because right now your offensive line is like a shaky. And I think that's the reason why Justin Fields he doesn't have enough time back there. Granted, Justin Fields is not doing his job as a quarterback by holding on to the ball too long. But that one, focus on the one game that he had when they got 9 sacks on him when they played the Broncos. Dude, 6 of those sacks were on the offensive line straight up. 3 of those those were on Justin Fields not holding on to the ball too long. Should threw it away. You gotta kind of work inside out, and it's going to take a process. Again, the Lions haven't really been as. I mean, they're not. Their peak of successfulness was like last year when they were 15-2. AG can do the same thing, but it's really dependent on the general manager. if he can make those picks well, and there's solidified picks, you got to hit on those picks. If you don't hit on those picks,
well, obviously, you make bad picks, it backfires. Obviously, but if you looked at the time, if we were living in the past, we would be debating, should the Cowboys have traded Herschel Walker to the Minnesota Vikings, one of the great backs in the NFL, gone to the Hall of Fame in the prime of his career for unknown draft picks. But that made the Dallas Cowboys, mini dynasty.
But that's an anomaly. How often does that happen? That's like one of the greatest trades ever for something like that to happen. And a fleece job. Minnesota got fleeced out of everything that they had. I mean, that was a fleece. You're not going to see that often, and you go again because most people are like, okay, I saw how that worked out, and I just like Richard said, everything based on what's built in within the lines, both offensive and defensive lines. You got to build up the trenches, and I think it's just going to be tough if you got and looking at this. To be honest with you, 2026 does not look like a good crop of draft picks coming in. Maybe 27 might look good, but I just, especially if it's a quarterback situation.
Number ones in 2027.
Right, they do. They got.
And also, there's that wild card as well. There's a little talk about it, rumors. Chances are it's nothing more than rumors right now. But the Bengals, you never know, might decide to do a makeover. Joe Burrow's been injury prone. Jets have enough capital to maybe work something out, like 3 number ones, a couple of number twos, a 5-for-1 deal, and get a mega star in Joe Burrow. He would be a mega star coming to the Jets. And it would empty out most of their draft capital, just about all of it. But believe me, that would solve their quarterback problem. They'd have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, providing he stayed healthy.
And that's
I would
have an offensive line to do that, though.
He's already in that situation right now.
Offensive line at Cincinnati, so you make the deal anyway. And the Jets drafted their last 2 years. Their number 1 draft pick has been for offensive linemen. So what are we going to say? Oh, they have to address the offensive line. They've been addressing the offensive line in free agency, draft picks. Things just have to work out.
Okay, so we can agree to disagree. We got about 22 minutes on this question here. Let's go to the next one. I like the Jets, and I was rooting for them. I think these are boneheaded decisions they're making, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What contributed more to Howard Cosell's fame, his relationship with Muhammad Ali, or his role as an analyst on Monday Night Football? Go ahead, James.
And I know we normally don't do this, but I'm going to defer on this one only because Jack is the boxing analyst. I mean, or not analyst, but writer, sports writer. I want to give him that respect and due on this particular question.
Yeah, it's first off, before Ali came on the scene, Cosell was known. Okay, before he did Monday Night Football, he was known, and Cosell was basically known for his brash, charismatic personality. This is Howard Cosell telling it like it is. His peers didn't like him. A lot of people would criticize him, but he was entertaining. All the people who didn't like him still watched him. His routine with Ali was funny. It was funny. People enjoyed it. But let's be honest, it was periodic. It wasn't like he got together with Ali, every week, every month and did a routine. He'd interview Ali. They would joke around, but Ali would joke around with a lot of other people. But with Cosell, he found the right person, to go back and forth with. And Cosell liked to kind of give it a little to Ali, and people enjoyed hearing it. And then there was Monday Night Football that he was there from the start. And I think Cosell's fame grew more on Monday Night Football because Monday Night Football was a phenomenon. We didn't have cable TV. It was something really new. Him, Don Meredith, Frank Gifford, and Meredith and Cosell would go at it, and Gifford would be the straight man. And, Cosell would more or less be the villain. And Meredith would be considered the good guy in that sense. And I think so many people watched Monday Night Football. It was the hot new show. Ali was just like an interview with Cosell. And Cosell's ego was kind of off the rails in a way. He thought he made Muhammad Ali, bigger. Ali was pretty much, it was just as big, but from an entertainment viewpoint, yeah, people loved the Ali Cosell routine when they would be interviewing together. It was like watching a great hitter like Aaron Judge at bat, and you have something to do. You wait until the at bat's over, and then you do what you have to do. That type of thing. So I definitely think it was Monday Night Football because you had a continuous audience for a long period of time on Monday Night Football. And historically speaking, when we look back on Cosell's legacy, basically, or look back on Ali's interviews with Cosell at the history of Monday Night Football, the history of Monday Night Football has a greater impact, a greater legacy than the Ali Cosell banter.
So while I somewhat agree with you, I agree with you about his, understanding like his bombastic personality, antagonistic. He was all those things. He had it, but he started in boxing. He started obviously in radio before that, but he started in boxing though. And that's I think where where he was known. He had his own style. He had his own cadence and how he talked. When he commentated, it was different. It was different. Whether you liked him or not, that's the person you want to listen to when you're going round for round, pound for pound, punch for punch. You want to hear somebody like that, and it made it all the more exciting when you're watching the fight. He coined phrases. He's known for the George Foreman Frazier fight. Down goes Frazier, and down how he said it 3 times. That's one of the most repeated lines, in history of sports. And I think his relationship, not just on side of the ring or inside of the ring with Muhammad Ali or interviews, I think it also outside of it what made him very popular. I think both were like a symbiotic relationship where they both benefited from one or the other. Like he may have said that he may have said that he catapulted Muhammad Ali's career. I think to some degree, maybe, but it's the same guy also that he benefited from Muhammad Ali's greatness as well. And I think also what helped him as well is to get into to bring him to Monday Night Football was being a guy to support Muhammad Ali in the time when he was down, during a Vietnam situation, when he supported him. He supported that guy. It wasn't just like, okay, I got behind him in football when it mattered for me most, but it seemed like, okay, this is a guy that you can look at, whether you love him or not, he still understood. That tells me there was a genuine friendship there too, as well. There was a genuine friendship. And I know when he became a commentator towards the end, when there was a controversial comment about, look at the little monkey go with Garrett, the guy for Washington. I think that it wasn't meant as to be intended, because had it been Muhammad Ali as more political and like an activist as he was, whether you would like to agree to him being a political activist or not, or religious, let's put it that way.
Ali's position on the war and everything pertained to himself. He was not a war activist at all. I can see where you're coming from with that, but what I will say is Ali wouldn't have been around anybody that he did not like or he felt was disingenuous. And I don't think that Cosell came off as disingenuous. And I think in the situation when he called a guy a monkey, he said he called his own grandchildren that. And then there's evidence
and filmed that he called a European Caucasian that was 5'8", 5'9", a little monkey that goes. So my reasoning for saying that is that I think all of that later success that he got all stemmed from what he got when he was commentating for boxing. And I think boxing
always like to latch onto stars. Be aware that he he tried to make a special friendship with the famous people. It was part of, I don't want to say manipulation, but he knew it would advance him. It would give him an in. If Cosell was around while Michael Jordan was around, he would have made it a point to get in the inner circle. And I don't blame him for doing that. He tried to be close with Floyd Patterson, but Patterson wasn't a great heavyweight champion, so it didn't matter. He tried to get in, and he did get in close with Ali. After Ali got in close with Sugar Ray Leonard, Cosell felt snubbed because in Ali's biography, he didn't mention Cosell's name. So when Cosell wrote his book, he wrote about Sugar Ray Leonard, not about Ali, because supposedly he was miffed. He tried to get very close, Cosell, with Joe Namath in New York together. That was, Cosell, but that's fine. I mean, I may have done the same exact thing. That's being a good journalist in a sense.
Right.
But what gave him more fame? The Ali Cosell thing was funny, the way Ali would fake like he was taking off Cosell's toupee, and things like that. And Cosell, who had a sharp tongue, he had someone who could certainly match him in Ali for the banter, the way it would go back and forth. But something about Monday Night Football, it gripped the nation at the time. It really gripped the nation. And what exactly is Cosell's legacy? It's a number of things. It's the Ali and the Monday Night Football and everything else. Maybe the down goes Frazier remark you mentioned is bigger for his legacy than those two things we mentioned, because we all remember those lines, and people use those lines for other sports things as well, imitating Cosell. Maybe that was the greatest call in sports history, arguably. Okay, but I think Monday Night Football was such a phenomenon at the time, not like today. Everyone was watching.
I will give you, he also coined the phrase, he could go all the way. And
Right.
Of course, that's his thing. And of course, Chris Berman follows suited with that and everyone else. So, I mean, Monday Night Football, I would say yes. Either way, I think we're flipping the coin here because both were definitely critical for sports in general. And I think he's the pioneer.
Someone I know in the media said it best about Cosell, came up with the best line, who wrote a little story about Cosell. He put down, yes, he was important. Yes, he did good things. I just wish he'd been nicer about it. And that, I guess, summed up Cosell. He wasn't a nice guy, all in all. But the thing with Ali, with the draft, Cosell was completely sincere. Took his position. It didn't make a difference, in reality, but the idea he took the position, and it went against the grain, and Cosell showed a certain amount of courage, and he was a career attorney. He knew by law, it was unjust what was going on with Ali. And the same thing Cosell felt athletes shouldn't be required to talk to the media because it was their constitutional rights not to. Well, if that's the case, can you imagine the whole team not speaking to the media or whatever?
It'd be pretty bad.
I want to say that Howard Cosell's fame with Muhammad Ali probably led to him getting that job on Monday Night Football. You got to remember, Monday Night Football was just starting off, so they were trying to get this on a platform where people were going to watch. It was something that was new. They needed charismatic people in that position, and who best to fit that bill but Howard Cosell? I mean, everybody knows his tips, his little things with Muhammad Ali, and I love that stuff. And so when he came on Monday Night Football, that's why Monday Night Football has been as successful as it has, and that's how it launched that way, because of him, along with his two co-hosts. I mean, you could say really Howard Cosell's fame to get started with Muhammad Ali to get him into the Monday Night Football. I recognize him for both. I recognize him for both. So I don't really have. It's not. It's you know.
Cosell wanted to actually expand and be in the news division. He wanted to leave sports.
Mm-hmm.
It got to the point he didn't like sports at all. A friend of mine at the time was a cabbie. Yeah, he owned his own cab, and he picked up Howard Cosell one day, and he's talking sports to Howard Cosell, and Howard Cosell says to him, "Can we change the topic? Let's talk about what's going on in the Middle East." And my friend says, "It's not every day I pick up Howard Cosell in my cab. Can we talk sports?" So then he asked him who was going to win this NFL exhibition game. I forgot the teams. And Cosell said he didn't give a damn, basically who won the game. Cosell missed out on two big assignments that people don't talk about. In 1971, I'm wearing the shirt, actually, the fight of the century, the first Ali Frazier fight. That assignment went to Don Dunphy, who was a traditional boxing announcer. Cosell badly wanted it, and considering his relationship with Ali and everything, that was a blow. He didn't get that. And then in the 1972 Olympics, when the Israeli athletes were killed, Cosell wanted to be the one to break the news on the air to the nation, but it was Jim McKay who did it. So Cosell, two big opportunities there would sometimes frustrate Cosell. He always wanted to do more. He even said once he aspired to maybe be a United States senator. And, but listen, there was no one like Howard Cosell personality-wise. I mean, he truly, was legendary.
We can all agree on that.
I can't picture him as a United States senator, though.
Well, he has listen, I heard Stephen A. Smith the other day, being interviewed, and they asked him, if you ran for president, could you win? He said, absolutely, without question. But then he mentioned all the money he'd be giving up that he's making, so on. So it's not quite for him. But some people are confident in their personalities and they get the job done. Look, we have a current president, and I'm not talking about his views one way or another. I never go there with that. But essentially, he was a personality before running for president. So it shows you that personalities in the right situation can aspire, to high office or whatever.
Stephen A. doesn't want the president's job. You think his hairline is far back now? It'd be to the back of his neck if he took that job.
What's interesting? Darryl Strawberry quickly got a pardon yesterday. And what's interesting, Donald Trump was a big Yankee fan. He used to love going to the Yankee games. He was a New Yorker. But you look at what he's done recently. He gave Mariano Rivera, I forgot, some type of medal in the White House. He went golfing with Roger Clemens and asked for Clemens to tweeted twice that Clemens should be in the Hall of Fame. And even though Strawberry is thought of as being a Met, he has 3 World Series rings from the Yankees. So, he kind of, I'm sure, knew Donald Trump during his time as a Yankee. So that's kind of interesting, the Yankee element that comes into it.
Clemency for Clemens. Maybe it's coming.
Oh. Well, Clemens is on the ballot. Roger Clemens is actually on the ballot and got 65% of the vote. Maybe he gets voted in sometime. It's not like a Pete Rose situation before where Rose had no chance, was banned. I mean, these guys aren't being banned. Clemens, Bonds, and A-Rod. I mean, they're on the ballot. It's up to the voters to decide what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Moving on to our next question. Which rivalry was greater, Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson or Wilt Chamberlain versus Bill Russell?
Yeah, I could take it first if you want today. You want to go first, James?
Go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I get the feeling you were raring to go, so go ahead.
No, that's okay. I don't. Either way, I can go either way. But I just flip a coin. You go ahead. We're good.
Well, that's what got Stephen A. in trouble with Max Kellerman. He didn't like Max being indecisive, that he could go either way. He wanted him to take one firm opposite position. So he claimed Max would be a little on the fence. Not that I agree, I don't agree, but that was Stephen A.'s position on that. Look, I remember as a kid, a young kid, watching the NBA on ABC television. You'd have like a game of the week. And I remember one time, and I honestly remember this, guys, Chamberlain going up against Russell. And even being so young, I remember thinking, you better cherish this because you're not always going to have this. It was Magic Wilt against Russell. There's never been a one-on-one rivalry, two guys guarding one another to match that. They truly went head-to-head. Now, this isn't a discussion right now necessarily who was a greater player, Chamberlain or Russell. You can make arguments for both guys, however you want. Obviously, Russell's teams won a lot more. He was a member of 11 championship teams, Wilt's 2 championship teams. But we didn't know Russell was going to win those titles till he won them. The rivalry was going on the whole time, head to head. The two giants facing one another. And sometimes it's circumstances that dictate who wins and who doesn't. And even Chamberlain was talking about one game when his Philadelphia 76ers played the Boston Celtics to see who would go to the finals. It was the 7th game. Chamberlain scores 6 points in the last minute, okay? And then the Celtics are up 1 point, and they have the ball out of bounds with a few seconds left. And Russell has to throw the ball in, and he hits the backboard. A horrendous play, And now the Sixers have the ball with a chance to win it. But of course, that's the famous quote by Johnny Most. Havlicek stole the ball. Havlicek stole the ball. So Russell wins again. But in reality, Wilt came up big at the end of the game. But then that'd be times 2 with all of Chamberlain's stats. Russell was the solid guy in the middle. Made the players around him much better. And even Chamberlain says, I don't think the Celtics could have won as much had I been on the Celtics instead of you, which he was probably right. It's a question of style. But head to head, when those two guys would go at it, it would be wow. What a matchup. Russell trying to stop Chamberlain. Russell would always say, said late on, he put everything he had into a few minutes against Chamberlain, and then he would kind of be exhausted because that would be the only way to contain Chamberlain. And Chamberlain did have a height advantage. No one talks about that. No. But what a rivalry. And Lady got Bird versus Magic Johnson, and all I'm going to say about that is they never really guarded one another. They never really went head-to-head in the true sense of the word. Their teams went head-to-head. You could evaluate their performance, either guy for their team. But Chamberlain and Russell directly went head-to-head, something Bird and Johnson didn't do. And as far as Magic and Bird having saved the NBA, I'm getting sick of that line. They didn't save the darn NBA. They elevated the NBA to the next level. Just like after Bird and Johnson, Jordan elevated it to a level after those guys, and all the players coming in, Wembanyama's elevating it to another little level right now. Sports and leagues grow according to the stars. In baseball, you got Ohtani. He's elevating Major League Baseball with Aaron Judge to an extent, but Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell was a true rivalry, and that the two of them were always butting heads directly on the court.
Look, I will say that Wilt versus Russell, Bill, that I wasn't watching during that time. The highlights that I've seen, they look great. I wish I probably could have been at a game if I was born during that time to have seen those two giants go against each other in those teams, the 76ers versus the the Celtics, but it was a rivalry, but it was kind of one sided. I mean, like when you speak of team effort. I mean, I get we talking about the players here specifically, but it didn't. All it was accumulated was big numbers from Wilt. Russell and his team, they were 7-1 in the playoffs against Wilt. That's dominant. So to me, it almost doesn't look like a rivalry. It looks like, okay, it's just one sided. It's one you won one game and we won the rest. I get what you're saying about him putting a big, tremendous effort at the end of the game and then Havlicek stealing the ball. Again, that's a part of the game. It's a team game. So to me, Bird versus Magic. And maybe I'm partial because I was able to watch those games. I was able to see what happened with that. But at the same time, you say it didn't save the NBA. Kind of did. Their viewership was tremendously down until they came. And these guys not only didn't save the NBA, it helped catapult them into a whole different stratosphere because it spawned, like, added in someone like Isaiah Thomas or Michael Jordan, these guys that became marquee players and their team became marquee that weren't really marquee at all. I mean, the Bulls and Detroit weren't like good at all, before that. And so, but again, the Lakers story championship, Celtics story championship, and they come together. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, whether we want to hear it or not, black versus white. It was a big deal. People didn't say nothing like that, but it was a big deal. It was tremendous. And the Lakers, obviously, predominantly black, the Celtics, predominantly white. It was a great thing for basketball. They knew how to use that. This is how people use racism now, in a sense, to benefit them. I just think, excuse me, it brought a lot back to basketball. It brought competitiveness. And you had two great players. Like you said, they may not have guarded each other, but they were marquee names that led their teams to championships. And they were the ones meeting at the end. They were the teams meeting at the end. And it's different because both the teams that now when Wilt was for the 76ers, he played in the same conference. So they could never meet for a championship. They'd always play each other in the playoffs, But this is more where everybody's watching. You're watching the two top gargantuans at the top, and they're playing each other, and you kind of evenly match because you had all these players, Dennis Johnson, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, all those guys on that team, and then of course you have Michael Cooper, James Worthy, and Kareem, the cap, and you had all these guys. It was just great matchups, man. You just can't beat that.
Yeah, and that's team matchups. But listen, I agree with you from this perspective. When people looked at the Lakers and Celtics who won, they would think more so, well, Magic beat Bird as opposed to Kareem beating anyone. I mean, I get all that. But as far as you mentioning the dominance the Celtics had over Wilt's teams, at the end they did by the number of championships they won. But it was a great rivalry, and those series weren't decided till the very end. They were 7-game series that the Celtics eked out. It was like the Yankees and Brooklyn Dodgers had a fantastic rivalry, but the Brooklyn Dodgers only won one World Series. But it didn't mean it wasn't a great rivalry because the Sixers looked like they could win a number of those series against the Celtics, and the Lakers later on as well. But it just
does. It makes it a great rivalry. I'm not going to deter that from Wilt versus Russell. But what I will say is a greater impact would be a championship rivalry. It's going to be a championship rivalry where everybody's watching. Most people, people are watching those two games, but this brings about international viewership, I'm pretty sure. When you have a Bird versus, their tennis shoes, marketability, everything changed with those two players. They played in college. They played in the championship against each other in college. Indiana versus Michigan State. That they started there. That meant that, and then to bring that on to the NBA and go on and have the same type of success.
But we never had, James, we never had the arguments with Bird and Magic who was better, the same way we have the arguments LeBron and Jordan. For whatever reason, people didn't argue exactly who was better than who, because partly it went along racial lines. White fans would lean towards Bird, black fans would lean towards Magic. So there weren't that objective debates in that sense. I remember talking to a coworker of mine who was black. We loved talking basketball, and he didn't like Larry Bird. He didn't think he was that good. And I'm saying, what do you mean he's not that good? And then Kurt Rambis's name comes up, and he goes, now there's a player. He's praising Kurt Rambis, not Larry Bird, okay?
Yeah, that's terrible.
It went along racial lines. That's beyond. And even now, we keep hearing all these Larry Bird stories from the former black players. God, come on, why not Magic Johnson stories? Why not more Michael Jordan or whoever else? I mean, they push Bird on us now like he's the only guy we hear these compelling stories about. It's like makeup time in a sense.
Well, because people, let's just say it was taboo. If you were a black star, you didn't want to give credit to a white guy playing, a superstar, playing. But to be honest, when he went to go play, I read stories and I heard stories, when he went to go play like rec ball league, or he didn't play against white guys. He'd go where all the black players were. And he would definitely, talk trash too. And that's another thing they said. Bird was a tremendous trash talker. And not only did he talk it, he backed it up. He'd tell you, you're going to need a couple more guys to come stick me, to be on me. That's what you want. But in that sense, he was definitely a great proponent of the resurrection of the NBA with Magic Johnson. And I think, and again, these guys were friends too. And like those other guys, those guys were friends too. They had a great respect for each other in Wilt and Bill. But I think, these guys as well. But I'd have to give an edge only because of the championship component, not versus the playoff and conference component.
I want to turn it over to Brian, but I also want Brian, there'll be time for him to make a comment on Bird hating Bill Laimbeer's guts because he felt Bill Laimbeer deliberately tried to injure him, unlike Rick Mahorn, the others. Bird gets along with Isaiah Thomas. He never had a problem with Isaiah Thomas, despite the remark Thomas made. I'll defend Thomas on that remark. I actually think he took a bit of a bad knock, believe it or not. But that's another issue. But I'm going to want you to make a comment after you're done, summarizing this about Bill Laimbeer and Larry Bird.
First of all, nobody likes Bill Laimbeer.
Well, the Piston fans like him. Piston fans like him. Come on.
Well, of course, because he played for the Pistons. But outside of that fact, you got to be realization that he was Bill Laimbeer. That dude was just, he mixed it up with anybody. He didn't even care.
Did he try to hurt Larry Bird deliberately?
He tried to hurt everybody. He tried to hurt Michael Jordan. And then Michael Jordan got clothesline going down the lane one time. Clothesline. I'm not talking about just push. He got clotheslined. So Bill Laimbeer did that. Bill Laimbeer is an attack, and that's the reason why Kevin McHale is the way he is, because Kevin McHale and Bill Laimbeer hated each other too, because it's just the fact that they used to they just didn't like each other. They used to bother each other all the time. So, but as far as the Larry Bird and Magic Johnson versus Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell comment, I'm kind of like James in a way. I really didn't get too much of the Chamberlain and Russell exposure because I was younger, and I wasn't really a basketball fan when I was really younger. I was like more of a football fan, but I did watch Larry Bird and Magic Johnson a lot because of the fact that it was the East Coast versus the West Coast. You had your black versus white thing going on. Both players were tremendous. They played in college. They played in the championship against each other. I mean, you couldn't set any of that up more perfectly than when it was. It was like a storybook, rivalry. And you had to appreciate that too, me and being as a Pistons fan, because really, like Isaiah said, in the prime, the Pistons beat all them teams in their prime. And beat the Lakers, beat the Celtics, and beat the Bulls. And that's something the Pistons got to hang their hat on. But Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, they were awesome. When you see them playing in championships, you see them playing even in regular season. It was a game to watch, even in the regular season. And there's not too many games in the regular, like right now. I mean, what games are you more interested in the NBA during the regular season? Not too many, but because you don't have any marquee players.
There's such parity in the NBA now. It's not. Yeah, you're right. Wembanyama, he went against Giannis, perhaps something like that. But
last night, you guys are missing out. Last night, the Spurs versus Houston, great game. Great game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those are again in the 80s and early 90s. I think it was about and players stay with their teams for a long period of time. There was no going to this team and going to that team and going to that team every 2 years. Magic Johnson was a staple of the Lakers, even though they had Kareem. And Kareem, I thought, was the better basketball player all around anyway. But nobody recognized that. They recognized Magic Johnson and Larry Bird on the Celtics. I mean, dude, it's just like Jordan being on the Bulls and Isaiah being on the Pistons. And those were staples in that time of basketball. And it was really great to watch basketball in that time because you had those staples. You don't have those staples now. You have team staples, this team versus this team, but you don't have a player associated with that team because they don't stay with this team that too much as they used to. So, I mean, I like Larry Bird and the Magic Johnson one. Like I said, I can't really speak too much on the Will.
Well, it's more stylish. Bird and Johnson did more on the court. Mm-hmm. I mean, Chamberlain and Russell had, a down-low game, basically. You wouldn't see them taking jump shots and doing the things taken today. They were true centers. Today, you don't really have true centers. When you ask who's the best centers in the game, you think of Jokic, and how many more do you actually think of beyond him who you could call elite, who are strictly centers? I mean, I don't even look at Steph Curry as being a point guard position because he's such a great shooter. And you don't think of point guards as being primarily shooters, and that's what he primarily is. So the game has changed somewhat, a lot. In that sense.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys really have anybody that you think currently that you would say is a rivalry, but between two players right now?
That will match up same position, you mean?
Yeah.
I can't think of one way I'd be excited one's going against the other. Look, if last night, for example, Wemby's playing with Durant on opposite sides, but that's more entertainment. It's not like a one-on-one rivalry. One quick word about the Pistons. They didn't really beat all these other teams in their prime. When they finally beat the Celtics were kind of a little past their peak at that point. But I will say this, had the Pistons not got hosed on that call on Lambeer and won Game 6, and won the championship that year, the Lakers repeated, that would have been 3 championships in a row for the Pistons. We would be looking at the Pistons as one of the all-time great teams then. So I think the Pistons, in a certain sense, got cheated in their place of history just a bit, even though they won back-to-back titles after that.
I don't know about LeBron and Steph. I mean,
it was more the teams. It was more Golden State versus Heat.
Like
and Cleveland.
I mean, I don't know. I think that, well, actually, if you think about it, if Isaiah didn't throw that stupid pass at the end, they could have been in 4 championships because they could have beat
Well,
the
that's the
Celtics
point.
would have won.
And had that happened, how would we have been looking at them? I mean, imagine the Pistons had won 4 in a row. You could make an argument, outside of the Boston Celtics who won 8 in a row. You could argue that that would have been the greatest team of all time, arguably, had they won 4 in a row.
Mm-hmm. Well, folks, that concludes this show for today. Again, join us tomorrow morning. Same 3 of us plus Keith Engel on the Big Football Show. We're talking college and pro football. And join Jack and Keith on Monday morning at 8 o'clock a.m. for the weekend playbook. And then, of course, at 7 o'clock p.m. on Monday, it is Jack and Frank doing the gloved fist for boxing. So join us on those shows. Everybody have a great weekend. We will see you soon.